is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
What is up? Welcome into this week's edition of Mizzou, That's Who, your podcast for Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network. I'm one of your hosts, Tucker Franklin, joined as always by Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. Look, we got a lot to get to this week. Missouri basketball didn't play the best. We'll leave it at that as we'll start with Missouri basketball, and then we're going to get into the bowl game, the Cotton Bowl preview podcast here for us today. But Gabe, how you doing? How was your Christmas?
It was good. I was at Arrowhead Stadium, so, I'm looking forward to Brady Cook being the best quarterback I watched play football this week.
Well, let that sink in a little bit. If you are the Mizzou Chiefs fan combo there, let that sink in for a little bit. Maggie, how are you doing? How was your Christmas? How is everything on the other side of the state?
Yeah, Christmas was good. We don't have NFL over here. Okay, I don't know if that's breaking news. But my Christmas was good. I also did watch some NFL though, and it was pretty relaxing. I hung out with family, and I'm looking forward to heading to Dallas tomorrow for the Cotton Bowl. And I did go to bragging rights as well, so that was interesting. But yeah, we'll talk about it here.
Both of you guys were in attendance at the bragging rights basketball game. I myself was not in attendance of that game, maybe thankfully, because I would have really hated if I would have made the 4-hour drive to watch that stinker of a performance. Who's the Battlehawks quarterback now? Because I was just trying to think. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you who the Battlehawks quarterback was.
No, because it's not AJ McCarron, so that's who it was last year. So
that was my guess.
Yeah, we'll find out soon because he's playing for a team.
That's true. Jordan Tamu that first year, he kind of was lighting it up a little bit. He got himself a little tryout as a practice squad guy with the Chiefs for a hot second. But I will be on the mission to find out who the Battlehawks quarterback is while you guys talk about a performance from the Missouri basketball team. 97-73, Missouri falls to the number 11 Illinois Fighting Illini. A less than ideal performance, Gabe.
You could say that. At one point, I know I tweeted, Missouri is 1 for 7 from 3-point range. If they want any chance, that has to really improve. And the thing was, they were not bad shots. Like, they were wide open shots. You can argue that the wrong guys were taking them, but if they are on the court, they have to take those shots. And they weren't going in. Then later in the first half, and I don't remember the exact score, but I did tweet, it is time to start looking at the worst margins of defeat in this rivalry. Because it was very obvious that this was going, like, the best case scenario in this one was going to be, oh, hey, they got down 25, but they played well again for a few minutes and made it 10 or whatever. And we talked about last week, they had to quit doing that, and they didn't quit doing it. And they played a team that was very motivated to avenge what happened to them last year, which was basically the reverse of this. With much better players and in a mismatch of a style, and it all added up to, I think what I wrote was, this is the worst game in a so far disappointing season. And anytime you're talking about the worst game not being blowing a 6-point lead to a previously winless team, that's rough times.
I like how you said you looked at one point and we were 1 for 7 from 3, and you said we have to get better. Because at the end of the first half, we were at the end of the first half, we were 1 for 17. We were 1 for 17 at the end of the first half from 3. So we didn't get better, but we did at the end of the game get better because we were 6 for 27. But it was just too little, too late at that point. Illinois was bigger, stronger, faster than us. Terrence Shannon Jr. had 30 points, 11 rebounds. Quincy Aguirre, I think is how you say it. He was transferred from Oregon. He had 28 points and 8 rebounds. Underwood came into this game to make a statement, okay? You look at last year, the games were completely flipped. What happened? It was just completely flipped, okay? We came out last year and nobody missed until the second half. I mean, we missed a few. And then we kind of took out our starters. I think we were up 30 for a lot of the game, took out our starters, And I think we ended up winning by like 22. Underwood was like, we're not doing that. Quincy Guerrier played basically the entire game. I think he came out. They put some kind of walk-on, I would say, with maybe 30 seconds left. If you look at the box score, you see that they had they played 7 players the entire game, and then they put in like a note, just like some random person at the end of the game. But it was just, he was in there to basically destroy us, and that's exactly what they did. The game was only a 23, or how many would we lose? Would we lose by 24?
Was the final, but it was 25 and a half.
Right. But it was only that because we literally made a buzzer beater shot at the end of the game. We literally made a 3-point shot at the end of the game. So
against the 4th string for Miller.
Exactly. That they put in with like 20 seconds left in the game. So yeah, it was a beat down basically the entire game. I mean, it was, and last year, mind you, it was an ice storm. There was nobody at the arena last year. My flight got canceled to Tampa. So there was nobody even really at the arena. That place was packed. And it
Maggie,
was
my estimate before the game was about 2/3 Illinois fans. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, 60.
There was a lot
65,
more
35
action than there was.
And I would say they always do that. It's funny because when I buy my tickets or whenever I get my tickets, I never even look at the Illinois section. And I kind of feel like Illinois fans don't care. They're just kind of like, oh yeah, I'll just buy whatever. There's a ticket in the Mizzou section, I'll just buy it. I never even look over there. I mean, like last year, even in my row, there was like, I don't know, 5 people in my row that were Illinois fans. I just think that they kind of don't care. And I'm just like, I'm not sitting over there. But yeah, it's always kind of like that, and just kind of is what it is. But yeah, it was loud for them most of the time. So yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Illinois they did anything they wanted to. It's reached a point where the offensive problems aren't even the problem for Missouri. I mean, they can't stop a good team. The other teams can get in the lane so easily, and then Missouri's guards all crash down in the paint, and then it's like, which wide open 3-point shooter am I going to throw the ball to? And after the game, Dennis Gates was talking about how well Illinois shot. Like, you would have thought Illinois shot 80% in the first half. They shot 50%. They were 7 of 19 from 3. Like, it was okay. But they were getting, every time they didn't score, they were getting an offensive rebound or getting to the free throw line. I mean, I said, if you watch those teams get off the bus, you would have picked Illinois by 24 points. Because I looked at them before the opening tip, I said, oh my God, they're huge. Like, huge. They look like 5 tight ends on the floor. And super athletic, playing to their strength. And I'm kind of at a loss to tell you what Missouri does well at this point, because I don't know anything.
Well, Gabe, that was going to be my question to you. Is like, what is wrong? Like, what's the one fit? Like, I know that's
okay. I can give you the one thing. Everybody wants one thing. I can give you the one thing. They don't have enough talent. They don't have enough good players. I mean, I don't, all this. And I don't think I understand them speaking to the fringe lunatics here, right? But like, Dennis Gates hasn't forgotten how to coach. He doesn't, it's not, he doesn't know how to coach offense or defense or whatever. He missed on some guys in the portal. And whether that was, he got out recruited, he got outbid, he decided it wasn't worth the money they commanded. He thought, Brett Beach style, it doesn't matter. I'm good enough. I'll just, no matter who I throw out there, I'll fix it. I don't know what happened, but they just don't have enough talent. Sean East is having a hell of a year. He was 8 for 15 on Friday night, but their entire offense is just Sean East just dribble around and throw in some incredible shots because they're asking Nick Honor and Noah Carter to fill roles they can't fill. Right. They've got a 7-footer who was supposed to be a 3-point shooter who's not shooting 3-point shots particularly well, but also doesn't really rebound. They've got a freak athlete who has offensively regressed to the point he won't look at the basket. They still don't have enough talent. And I said last week, if they lose this game, I'm done talking about the tournament. And they can talk about it all they want. They're not giving up on the season 12 games in. I'm not saying that. I'm done entertaining any idea that this team is an NCAA tournament team, unless they just go on a run that I just don't think they have.
Well, that was something we talked about last week, right? Like when they went through that stretch of tough non-con games of Kansas, Seton Hall, Illinois, we talked about 1 and 2. Like they need to win one of them, and they didn't. Like they need to at least win one of them, and they didn't. So now I think we kind of know who they are, Maggie.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week about the passing and how like last year their chemistry was just so good, and I think that won them some extra games. And then I feel like almost Friday we were kind of wanting them to, maybe not take the extra pass. Like I feel like the other games we were like, make the extra pass, and don't shoot it. And then I feel like everybody just wanted to make the extra pass on Friday. Like I just wanted somebody to shoot the ball, and nobody would shoot the extra ball. And it was just the end of the shot clock every single possession. And then it was just terrible shot after terrible shot. Or when it was a good shot, just nobody could make the shot. And I feel like Connor Vanover, like when he would take the shot, I'm like, isn't that what he did at Oral Roberts? Like, didn't he lead the nation in some type of statistical figure of big men that shot the three? I mean,
if you look at his career numbers, because I did after the last game, he's a 31% 3-point shooter. Yeah, he was 38% at Oral Roberts. That's a different level of basketball. It's a different level of basketball. Watching Illinois on Friday night looked like watching Missouri's team last year. I mean, the ball was just zip, 6 passes all over the court, just defenders just chasing them. And I was like, that's what it looked like for Missouri last year. Doesn't look like that this year. I think their biggest problem is they're not getting any easy baskets because they don't force very many turnovers. Like they're supposed to be this pressing team, but Illinois had 10 turnovers, and really about 5 of them were in the second half when they just kind of went through this, do we still have to care stretch? They had 6 turnovers with like 8 minutes left. And if your identity is we wreak havoc on the defensive end, that's not going to work. They don't get any easy baskets. They can't shoot the open three, but they can't shoot layups, guys. Jesus Carolero missed literally a tip-in that was a 6-inch shot. And I don't mean to pick on him. It was just the one that stood out. It was one of the least competitive basketball games I have seen in a long time. I mean, between two like real teams.
Well, and Illinois doesn't even really have a point guard. So the fact that if you can't get turnovers against a team that doesn't have a point guard, and you have Sean East and Nick Honor who are supposed to specialize in getting turnovers, I mean, that's a problem.
Good thing for Missouri fans is it's still football season.
It is still football. That is very good for Missouri fans. Gabe, I'm trying to think. I've been trying to find this stat. Was that the most points that allowed in the Dennis Gates era?
Yes, and I know that only because I looked at if 93 was after the Seton Hall game, and it was second to 95 by Kansas last year. So 2 of their 3 worst defensive games in the last 2 games.
That's what I wanted to bring up. I thought that I had read that somewhere. I thought that I saw that you had put that out there. But I wanted to double check that because, like, as you mentioned, they're a team that like wants to be better on the defensive side of the ball. I brought up the KenPom rankings. They're 92nd in the country. When you look at adjusted defense, they're 125th. So they haven't really improved all that much on the defensive side of the ball.
It's better than it was last year.
It is.
I mean, it was 180th last year. But the problem was, I mean, last year you could survive it because they were elite offensively. They were 9th in the country. They are okay offensively this year.
71st is what it says right here on my adjusted offense for KenPom. But yeah, Gabe, you mentioned it. It's football season. I think a lot of Missouri fans are still focused on football season. Obviously, you're in a New Year's Six Bowl. You're playing a blue blood college football team, and it comes to that. But we'll get to the good stuff. We'll get to the meat to reward people who sat through the 15 minutes of us talking about Missouri basketball. We will reward people. Missouri does have Central Arkansas coming to town before they hit the SEC slate. They don't start the SEC slate very easy with Georgia and then Kentucky at Kentucky. So they'll have Central Arkansas coming up on December the 30th on Saturday. That'll be after the Missouri football game. So let's get into the football stuff. But first, we're going to take a break. But we got to tell you about our friends at Home Field Apparel. I'm obviously rocking the hoodie. It's snowing in Kansas City as we're recording this. That sucks. It's been flurrying all day. So you need to get your fleece from homefieldapparel.com. They've got great stuff. They've got more than just this hoodie in the Missouri section. They got a pretty sweet quarter zip. They've got one that says Old Mizzou, and it's a little bit of a darker color, a little heather gray type hoodie. Good stuff there at homefieldapparel.com. And if you are new here, if you haven't ordered at Home Field Apparel, we got a code for your KCSN23. They'll get you 15% off your first order, so you can go get all of the things that you need to gear up for whatever you're taking on this spring, this winter, and even next year going out to Faurot Field. Because, listen, got an exciting team coming back next year as we start to look at the transfer portal and some of the guys who've already announced they're coming back for this team. A lot of exciting things. Make sure you're suited and booted for your time at Memorial Stadium. So we're going to take a break. When we get back, we're going to talk football on the other side.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, welcome back in here to Mizzou, That's Who. Let's get into the football side of things. And as we look at the big thing around these bowl games are who cares, right? Which team cares the most in these bowl games? You look at some of the players that the Ohio State Buckeyes have in their list, compare it to the list of the guys that the Missouri Tigers have in the transfer portal. The Ohio State Buckeyes list is a bit longer, to put it in one way. But there's also some guys on Ohio State that we would have maybe anticipated to opt out that haven't opted out, Gabe. Some of those being Emeka Ibuka. He's already said that he's going to be playing in the Cotton Bowl. Left guard Donovan Jackson has also said that as well. Jack Sawyer has gotten a lot of snaps this year for Ohio State, also playing in the game. And they've got Jordan Hancock, one of their DBs, with Denzel Burke as well. And Tyleik Williams, another guy on that defensive front. So they got a lot of defensive guys coming back, especially on a defense that played really well for Ohio State. First thoughts on this game. I think the line has stayed pretty close to Missouri -1. Some spots you can get at Ohio State -1 I've seen. It's going to be a real close game, but first thoughts on just who's suiting up for both these teams.
Yeah, the two that at this point appear to be in question for Ohio State. I mean, there seems to be maybe a little bit of question about Tommy Eichenberg, Ohio State's middle linebacker, whether he's healthy enough. But Marvin Harrison Jr. was at practice, but at least when the media got to watch this, we're recording this Tuesday afternoon. Ohio State had 15 minutes of open practice on Tuesday morning. Marvin Harrison was there. He did not appear to be practicing when the media was there. Doesn't mean he didn't, doesn't mean he won't, but I think the guess is he probably doesn't play. Travion Henderson practiced. I think they expect him to play. Missouri side, Ennis Rakestraw, Tyron Hopper officially out for this game. Rakestraw, not at all a surprise. I thought Tyron Hopper might be healthy enough to play, and I don't really know if this is he's not healthy enough to play or he's borderline healthy enough to play, but it's not worth the risk. I don't know, and I'm obviously not in Dallas. But those two guys aren't playing. I think the only advantage for Missouri in that is they've already played a couple games without these guys. They know what it's like to play without him. Whereas Ohio State does not know what it's like to play without Marvin Harrison on the field. Does not know what it's like to play without Kyle McCord as the starting quarterback. So might be a little bit of an adjustment period there. But again, I think Ohio State has other, I think their backups are decent.
And could serve as a slight advantage. I mean, depending on how you look at it, playing a backup quarterback as well, because Mizzou has no clue what to expect without Kyle McCord, right? The only thing we've seen is what?
76.
Brown go 12 for 22 for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, I don't have it in front of me who those 2 touchdowns are against, so I don't, no clue what to really expect out of him. I don't know if those 2 touchdowns were even to Marvin Harrison Jr. They could have been like, I don't know. So yeah, I know that Mizzou has often in the past, and maybe this is me being a negative Mizzou fan, struggled against backup quarterbacks.
Devin Brown threw a touchdown against Western Kentucky, and he threw a touchdown against Purdue, a game in which he went 1 for 2 for 58 yards and a touchdown and had a quarterback rating of 458 points.
We're done. We're done, guys.
So that's pretty good.
He also wears number 33. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. That's awesome.
I'm a little disappointed Sam Horn is not starting this game, just so we could have gotten 21 versus 33 as a quarterback jersey battle. And like so many people, I think, would have gotten angry about it.
Oh, yeah. People are upset that Sam Horn wears 21. I'm like, why are you upset about the backup quarterback's number? Like, why
are you anybody's number? Like, I don't care. Wear whatever number you want.
It's Chris Rush's number. Come on, guys.
Like a Q on your jersey. I don't care.
Great.
Maybe not.
I think that there should be no number restrictions anywhere. I like it when the big defensive linemen wear the number 0 when it gets completely swallowed up in their pads.
Single digit numbers on defensive linemen look awesome. They make these guys look even like bigger and more physically imposing. The Raiders had some defensive linemen wearing number 9 yesterday. I was like, I think he's 6'10", 325, and just like it's all because he was wearing the number 9.
Yeah, the Chiefs' offensive line was a turnstile yesterday.
That too.
That probably also was a part of it. But I do think that that's interesting when it comes to Marvin Harrison Jr. because as the time of recording this podcast, I should say, don't want to date ourselves. We haven't had an announcement yet, and it feels like usually by now we already have announcements.
I think it's become a little more, especially in these bigger games where teams are looking for any competitive advantage. Like, I think Ryan Day probably knows if he's playing.
That's fair.
But I think, like, Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, I feel like didn't opt out until maybe the day before the game. Tyler Beatty didn't opt out of the Armed Forces Bowl until the team was already down in Dallas. And actually, the only reason it broke was some random Twitter account said he's not going to play. So people started asking. So I feel like it's a little more common in these games. I mean, these coaches think that, like, they don't want to let the other team know what uniforms they're wearing because it might be a competitive advantage. So, hey, I guess if you don't say, I guess you can make Missouri prepare for Marvin Harrison all week and then not have, I don't really know what difference that would make, honestly, because they're just preparing for the offensive scheme and the routes Harrison runs. So putting somebody out there who doesn't do it as well, I don't know how that's a competitive advantage to not say it, but whatever.
And I don't think that Chris Abrams-Drain is going to be scared one way or another. I think you're going to get players like that are going to be excited for that type of challenge. I don't think that they would be nervous for anything like that.
Yeah, I just don't think it changes anything, but whatever, he can say whatever. And hey, keep open the option. Maybe he truly doesn't know. Maybe Friday morning he's going to wake up and say, you know what? Let's go do this. I want to play. And I have a feeling Ryan Day would manage to work him into the game plan.
You would think that Ryan Day would be able to
find a spot for him
to make it happen. But
sorry, already promised your snaps to this guy. I don't know his name because he hasn't played. I don't know if he's any good, but I already told him he could play. I can't go back on him. You have some fruit roll-ups and hang out on the side.
Well, because I mentioned Emeka Egbuka did commit to already playing in the game. The other, probably their number 2 wide receiver, Julian Fleming is probably the other one, but he's already committed to Nebraska to play. He won't be playing in this game, unlike all of James Madison's team that was committed elsewhere but still played in the bowl game, which I thought was wildly interesting. But yes, Emeka Egbuka is not going to be will be playing. Julian Fleming not going to play. So the wide receiver room is going to be a little depleted, right? Even if they do have Marvin Harrison Jr., which, I mean, it'll be an interesting experience with Devin Brown at quarterback. One of the things about Ohio State later on in the season is they really started to rely on their defense and running the football. TreVeyon Henderson started to really come on for them a little bit later on in the season and showed to be a good running back. And their defense, that secondary, is really good. As I mentioned, a lot of those guys playing in this game, going to come back. It's going to be a good test for Brady Cook in that offense.
No question. I mean, that's the strength of their team. And I know Missouri fans want to say, but they played nobody, Paul. And to some extent, he's right. They're right. I mean, Michigan's the only competent offensive team Ohio State has played, but you can be a good defense and just not have been tested a lot. They've got a lot of NFL talent. It's going to be, you mentioned Denzel Burke, and it's going to be a good test for Brady Cook and Missouri's receiving core and Cody Schrader in this game. Ohio State will be the best run defense Missouri has played. They're 2 spots better than Kentucky, 3 spots better than Tennessee, 5 spots better than Georgia, I think. So it's like they've had success against good run defenses. But it's, Javon Foster and that offensive line, this is among the best defensive fronts they've played. They got guys, man. I mean, doesn't matter if it's first string, second string, guys that maybe Missouri fans aren't familiar with, because I don't know about you guys. I don't tend to like to fill my Saturdays by turning on 14-10, rock fights in the Big Ten, but so I haven't watched a lot of them.
I do think it's interesting. I was reading Power Mizzou, and I was looking at the articles about Mizzou's offense versus Ohio State's defense, and the vice versa articles. And if you haven't read those, they're very interesting just to kind of compare numbers, because it's all very kind of all over the place. But just like looking about Mizzou averaging 34 points a game, which is obviously way up from last year, which is just insane. And Ohio State's defense allowing 11 points a game, which is insane. That's second in the country. But just things like that. So not saying that Mizzou's going to score 11 points. I'm not saying anything, less than that, but just looking that over. So we're not going to go over all of those numbers or anything like that. But if you subscribe to Power Mizzou, maybe go look at some of those, because it's pretty interesting just to read those over.
It is worth noting the top 4 scoring defenses in college football were all in the Big Ten. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa. 4 best scoring defenses in the country. Now, how much of that is good defense and how much of that is, but you played Rutgers and Minnesota and Nebraska and Iowa. And I don't know.
Right. I wonder how much it's going to change next year when you have, USC and UCLA and Washington and Oregon, people with real offenses coming into the conference, how much that does change the defensive numbers, because they're not seeing, I don't want to say no offense, but it is offense. They're not seeing real offenses, on a weekly basis.
I would go out on a limb and say USC will not rank in the top 4 in the country defensively. I know that. I don't care what conference they play in.
What? Are you sure?
That's fair. I want to kind of talk maybe big picture for this game, because as I mentioned, this game, Vegas is projecting this game to be a close game. It's projecting this game to be a 1-point game even. If Missouri does pull this out, right, where does this rank in terms of bowl games and hierarchy of the importance, with the opponent involved, with the prestige of the bowl game? Last year, the 14 playoff game. Where do you think this ranks in terms of importance of bowl wins?
I would have to go. I mean, I think it would be the best one since the 1960s. Because, again, the 2013 Cotton Bowl, Oklahoma State was fine, but Oklahoma State, the 2007 Cotton Bowl against Arkansas that I think it fired its coach and didn't particularly want to be there. I mean, other than that, you're going back to, I don't know, they beat South Carolina in the Hall of Fame Bowl with Heisman Trophy winner George Rogers in 1979. That was something. They beat Auburn in the 1973 Sun Bowl. I couldn't tell you anything about that. But, the 1968 Gator Bowl, they beat Bear Bryant 35-10. He didn't
nothing.
He didn't play, but he coached. 1965 Sugar Bowl, they beat Florida, quarterbacked by one Steve Spurrier. So, it's probably up there with some of the games in the 1960s. I think it would be the biggest bowl win they've had since then.
And, I mean, it's Ohio State, right? It'd be our second win of all time over Ohio State. And let's look at it this way, okay? There's a reason right now that a bunch of Ohio State players are not opting out of this game. And I think a reason is that Mizzou players aren't opting out, right? I don't think that Ohio State wants to lose this game. As much as some people are saying that this game isn't important and Missouri's not good. I don't know if they're saying Missouri's not good, but, that Missouri's beneath them or whatever. I don't think that they want to lose this game. And I think that there's a reason. I think there's a little bit of pride maybe behind it. And I think that it might matter just a little bit more than they're blooding on that it matters. So, yeah, I think that this would be probably one of the bigger games for us. It might not be a very big game in terms of winning for them, but I think it would be a big game in terms of losing for them. And I think that that's why it's important if we win it.
How do you think this would compare, guys, with the 1981-1917 Tangerine Bowl win over Southern Miss? What do you think about that? If anybody can't tell, I'm literally just looking at a list of Missouri bowl games on Wikipedia right now.
Tangerine Bowl. That'd be probably pretty close. I don't make any big sweeping judgments on that game. No, I mean, I think it is big. Maggie, I think you make a good point because people are going to spend a lot of time bashing on Ohio State and Ryan Day if they lose to Missouri, right? That's not necessarily a brand name that Ohio State and Ryan Day has lost to. If you look at Ryan Day's record, he's lost to only Georgia, Michigan 3 times. Maybe Penn State. No, he hasn't even lost. The only team he's lost to in the Big Ten is Michigan. So I think he lost to Georgia and Alabama and Michigan are the only teams he's lost to. He lost to Oregon as well. So he's lost to some pretty big brand names and some teams that have been AP top 5. I know that was the big thing is that if he's going against, I think it might have been college football top 5 teams, he's 1-4 or something like that against college football. Those are the teams he loses against. Having a loss to Missouri on that resume probably won't sit with him very well. I know Missouri fans might be like, hey, that's not very nice. It's true, right? It's true. Missouri's not the same as Georgia, as Michigan, as Oregon, Alabama. They're not. They're not that program. But, I mean, they're building. They've got some good stuff coming in. I mean, they got a lot of transfer portal stuff. They got some stuff we'll talk about here in a second. But I think that is probably a motivating factor in itself for at least Ryan Day, who might not necessarily be on the actual hot seat, but he's got some pressure applied for losing 3 straight to Michigan. If he loses 3 straight to Michigan, misses out on the college football playoff, and then all of a sudden he's looking around, he loses to Missouri at the Cotton Bowl, I think people will be pretty unsettled with what Ryan Day is doing over there in Columbus. But I mean, that's maybe why they're taking this game a little bit more seriously than, say, Oregon is against Liberty.
Missouri would be the second lowest ranked team to ever beat Ryan Day as a head coach. He lost to number 12. Yes, he lost to number 12 Oregon in Columbus. Every other loss is against a top 6 team. And we're out here talking about if this dude should be on the hot seat next year.
Correct.
It's okay to say they just live in a different world. And Alabama and Georgia are the only 2 teams that live in this world.
Yeah.
Not even Clemson. Dabo's going to survive 9-4. I mean, Ryan Day let's say he wins this game. He's 51-7. Say he goes 11-1 next year. He could be 62-8, and they are legitimately going to talk about whether they need to fire.
Yes. The expectations that fan base has is unreal, truthfully.
But it's not unreal. I mean, it's realistic because they kind of are always there.
Yeah. That's fair. But I do think that's why we're going to see a good game. I think that's part of the reason that we're going to see a highly competitive game.
Do you know? Okay, so since 2004, Ohio State went 8-4 in 2004. How many times have they lost more than 2 games in a season?
Oh, God.
We're talking 20 years.
2?
Twice. Yep.
Wow.
They went 6-7 when Luke Fickell was an interim coach when they had the whole tattoo thing and Jim Tressel was gone. And they went 10-3 in 2008, and the third loss was the Fiesta. So,
it is kind of crazy too. we were sitting here and I was able to recall off the top of my head every single one of his losses. And we're talking, you make a great point of like, we're talking about like this dude, some contingent of Ohio State fans are like, can't win the big one. Got to get him out. Can't win the big one. And like, that's so crazy. I know that there were some rumblings of him going to Texas A&M, which would have been a chaos to the finest. It just would have been chef's kiss.
That just screamed agent plant somewhere along.
Yes, 100%.
But I mean, no, but for Missouri to pull that off, to win this game would be like, I feel like it's the difference between like really, really good season and season we're still talking about in 15 years. And springboard to, we talked about what next year can be. And I don't think losing this game changes that. I'm not a big believer in, hey, losing a game or winning a game in December matters next September a whole lot. But if you win this game, the one thing it matters for is all those preseason top 25s that are going to come out sometime between January 2nd and August. Missouri wins this game, they're going to be in everybody's top 10 and probably some people's top 5. Yeah. And that does matter going into a season where at the end of the year, if you come down to splitting hairs between a 1-loss and a 2-loss team or, this strength of schedule versus that strength of schedule, it really helps if you started the season ranked 5th.
Well, especially whenever you look at it and you go, oh, well, Ohio State kind of cared because they only had like a couple of people sit out and they had a backup quarterback, but their backup quarterback was really highly ranked. It's kind of like when people were like, oh, well, Texas went to overtime with K-State. Yeah, but Malik Murphy was a top 10 quarterback from a top 5 class. It's not like it's a loser backup quarterback. That's what these good classes pull in.
I think the opt-out discussion, I think you're going to be able to, like whatever side you're on, you're going to be able to make your point. Mm-hmm. Missouri fans, regardless of how this game goes, are going to go, well, they have better backups than most teams have starters, and they didn't have that many guys sit out, blah, blah. And the other side, regardless of what happens, is going to go, well, what do you think was going to happen? Marvin Harrison didn't play in their starting quarterback transfer. Right. And I'm not saying either view of that is necessarily right or wrong, but my point is that discussion is only going to be formed by what you want to say about it. Like, you're just going to use it to prove what you want to be true.
And I want to be clear, I'm building up Ohio State on this to show the magnitude of what this win would be for Missouri, right? This is a program that doesn't lose football games. Like, this is a program that has not lost in all that much in the Ryan Day era. And really, Gabe, as you pointed out, in the last 20 years, they haven't lost. So I think beating a program like Ohio State, no matter who they have on the field, because they are a really good program, they're at the top of the recruiting list every single year. They're at the top. They're a good program. And I think that it's something that is really easy to recruit around, right? We've already seen Eli Drinkwitz be a really good recruiter selling hope. Gabe, you mentioned on one of the podcasts, now he actually has something to sell with the 10-win season. He would have something even more to sell with a 10-win season, an 11-win season, and a win over Ohio State. Like, that would be incredible in terms of just the recruiting pitch standpoint of it with your 2 coordinators coming back for the next year.
So I don't mean to turn this into like Ohio State is the greatest thing in the history of college football, although I think that's a potential argument. Since, let's see, how many losing football seasons do you think Ohio State has had? They have been playing football since 1904. How many times do you think they have lost more games than they've won?
Handful of times, 5 times maybe.
I was going to say like 6.
7.
Wow.
7 times in 120 years. That includes this podcast should be sponsored by Wikipedia, right? Really. That includes John Wilkes in 1922 went 3-4. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the John Wilkes there. He also went 2-3-3 in 1924. Really, John Wilkes, not a very good college football coach. 2 of the 7 losing seasons in Ohio State history. In 1943, some guy named Paul Brown went 3-6. He sucked. He never went on to do anything in his football career. Wesley Fessler had the worst season in Ohio State history, going 2-6-1 in 1947. So, yeah, Woody Hayes went 3-5-1 one year, and then
He did.
many years later punched a player on the sidelines. So, 3-5-1 wasn't the worst thing he ever did. So there's your Ohio State history lesson.
I don't know. They might not think that there. They might actually think that the record was worse.
They think 3-5-1 was worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might.
Sure.
What was his record against Ohio or against Michigan though? Like that's the record that they want to.
He was there for, let's see, he was the head coach for 28 years. So I'm going to guess he did pretty well against Michigan.
Doesn't Urban Meyer have like a restaurant in Columbus? And his.
I think you can find some pictures from that restaurant.
Yeah, it's the Prince Pond.
I laughed because that's what I realized. Yeah, he does actually. But there's like a back room or like a room in
again. Social media pictures, back room, Urban Meyer's restaurant. Yes.
The name of it.
You're not digging out of this hole.
What I'm getting to. The name of it is like his record against Michigan, which he didn't lose against Michigan, I don't think. It's just like I don't know what it was, like 6-0 or something like that, 7-0, however long he was there. But it's just called like 7-0 because like that's how much that record means to like Ohio State fans, that they'll build a whole restaurant around it.
Yeah, but point being, big game for Missouri, no question.
Yeah,
right.
No question.
I mean, I think all of Michigan is cheering for Mizzou. So despite the all situation.
I would think literally everybody that's not an Ohio State fan is cheering for Mizzou. That's what you do in these games, right?
Kansas, or Oklahoma. Yeah,
I don't know. Oklahoma might be cheering for Mizzou in this game.
I don't know. I
don't think very many people like Ohio State outside of Ohio State.
It's true.
Recruits can't really flip anymore either, so they might actually be.
Actually, they can. They can transfer.
I mean, I guess
they can now transfer literally anytime they want.
That's true.
There's
Never mind.
Thing is only one-time transfers anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I know, Gabe, that Drink had alluded to like stay tuned on announcements into the coordinators, and he did eventually announce they are coming back for another season. They signed contract extensions. I don't know if you have the terms of those or if that's something that they release. Are they just all year-to-year type of deals? Is that what these are? Or?
No, they were on 2-year deals, I think. So I would imagine they will be 2 or 3-year deals with more money. I put in an open records request, but the university is not open this week, so I imagine it's going to be a while before I get the terms of that. But Kirby made $850,000 last year. I would imagine he's over $1 million. Blake, I think, made 1.2 this year. He'll I'm sure be up in that 1.5 range. But I think big deal for Missouri to keep both those guys. Like Brady Cook's not learning a new system, right? You've got everything seemed to work this year. So the only time I think you really are advocating, hey, let's see some changeover in this coaching staff is when things don't work. I mean, if it works, you want to bring them all back. I think good thing that Missouri is. I'll be interested to see. They've had a few guys this week officially announced they were coming back. Chuck Hicks did. Mookie Cooper did. Joseph Charleston did. Christian Williams hasn't, but we reported weeks ago we were confident he's coming back. I feel pretty good Theo Weiss will come back. So then we're kind of getting into, can you really pull a surprise with somebody like a Chris Abrams-Drain or somebody like that coming back? And I don't know that that's likely, but, it sounds like a lot of the guys that have the option to come back are going to.
That's great.
Yeah, that's good. Cody Schroeder, that's unfortunate.
Can Mevis come back, or can he not come back?
He can. Everybody, I'm not sure it's been decided, but nobody seems to really be talking like he is going to come back next year. Although I saw somebody posted on our board. He comes back next year, he has a chance, like a pretty legitimate chance, to be the leading scorer in college football history.
Oh, wow.
Which I think you've got to put an asterisk by all these numbers. I mean, you got
100%.
in 5 and 6 years. I don't know how, it's like, is somebody running for 2,000 yards in a 17-game season the same as OJ doing it in 12? Probably not,
Right.
But
It does help to be the number one red zone scoring offense.
field goal team.
Yeah. We can't score
that's
touchdowns, but we can score field goals.
Right. That was a little misleading number because what it meant was they didn't turn the ball over, but they kicked a lot of field goals of 35 yards or less.
I do love that spin zone. That spin zone by the Missouri Stats and Information. Listen, that's what they do. That's what the department's there for. They're doing a good job of it. That is an ultimate spin zone of like, yeah, we only score in the red zone. Maybe sometimes, most of the time, 3 does happen. But anyway, I was trying to figure out how old Cody Schrader was. Is he 23? Going to be 24?
He's got to be somewhere up there.
I mean, he started college in 2018. So that was a while ago. That was before there was...
However old Nick Bolton is, he probably is.
Oh, yeah. That's crazy to think about. Wow. Well, any final thoughts before we depart this recording and we ascend on Dallas and watch the Missouri Tigers play a football game?
I mean, do we have to pick? Like, are we picking it?
Yeah, I guess we haven't done a game preview podcast in so long. I forgot that's what we do at the end of these podcasts. So, Gabe, what's your prediction?
Probably.
I think I lean Missouri because of the motivation factor. I believe in Ohio State's defense. Like, I think they're good.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to be a 41-38 game. I'll go Missouri 26-24 on a Mevis game win. How's that?
You took my game winner idea, but that wasn't my score. My score was 30-27. Also was a Mevis game winner. Because, I mean, you got to end it. Similar. I don't want to say how you started it, but I feel like K-State's how you started it. Really, like, that's how, like, I count, like, that's how it set the tone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So.
I mean, the last time Missouri played in the Cotton Bowl, the play that won it was, Michael Sam sack, Shane Ray scoop and score, and it just was so fitting that it was that guy that made that play. So, like, it has to be, if they win this game, I feel like it has to be Mevis or Cody as the MVP.
Yeah.
Ride the horses that got you there.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. I'm excited to see this Missouri offense take the field against a really good game, as you mentioned, a really good Ohio State defense. I'll be interested to see how Missouri's defense shows up and performs against a backup quarterback that don't have a whole lot of tape on. They've got some good wide receivers. We know the history of, Brian Hartline over there producing those wide receivers that they do out of Ohio State. Like, they're going to have dudes. They've got dudes on that wide receiver room. We just haven't heard of them yet, type of deal. So they're going to have good wide receivers over there. I'm going to take the Tigers 32-26 to win this football game. That would be a scoregami. So I want to see a wild game with a scoregami. That would be perfect. 32-26. That's my prediction. I feel good. I really do feel pretty positive overall, vibes wise, going into this game about Missouri against Ohio State. Which maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, we're riding with them. Either way.
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm all the way in.
I feel like at this point,
yeah.
Why would you pick against them? They're 10-2.
It's fair. And this is a Missouri podcast, right? Well, I'm not gonna.
We're just trying to drive up the ratings, guys. Just tell people we're all homers. Maybe they'll listen.
Yeah, that might actually help us.
If there's one game we can be homers at, I feel like it's the Goodyear. Is that Goodyear Cotton Bowl? Come on.
Goodyear, yep. They still got it. Before you know it, it'll be like I don't know. Did you guys see the Pop-Tarts Bowl trophy? That looks really sick. I was kind of upset that Missouri's not playing in the Pop-Tarts Bowl trophy.
Isn't K-State in the Pop-Tart Bowl?
They are in the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Lucky.
It's a toaster. It's like a toaster on the football. It's cool. So,
But Mevis got all those Pop-Tarts earlier in the season, so Mizzou's gotten their Pop-Tarts already. It's fine.
That's fair. That was really cool. I wish I would get a shipment of Pop-Tarts, but
If Missouri was in the Pop-Tart or the Cheez-It Bowl, I'd be there for the media gift. I'll tell you that.
oh yeah, I do love. Look, those Kellogg sponsored bowls, man. They get after those Kellogg sponsored bowls, but
Gabe's not gonna wake up feeling the cheesiest this year, though. So.
no. All right, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Mizzou. That's it. We'll be back next week with another episode. We'll work out logistics and everything with the new year. Have a happy new year. Happy holidays to everybody listening and everything like that. We'll be back after a Missouri Tigers win, manifesting it here. So stay tuned. Be a friend, tell a friend, and we will talk to you later.